Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 13 of The Standoff, your rugby league show. And this week I'm joined, as always, by Brad Inger, but we've got an exceptionally really good round to talk about this week, Brad.
Yeah, good evening, Sanjay, and good evening to our listeners. Some great games to talk about this week, and my first perfect prediction round, so I can't wait to discuss it.
Yes, I'm sure that you can't wait to discuss that. Well done, Bradley. 8 from 8 picks this week. The first time that's happened this season for either of us. So that certainly is a highlight of the week. But Brad, we're here as always on Facebook on a Wednesday at 8 p.m. But our listeners can also catch us via our podcast.
That's correct, yes. You can go to iHeartRadio and search for New Zealand Sport Radio.
As always, we'll cover off the top stories of the week. We'll have a look at round 15 and preview of round 16 before we head off with news from the United Kingdom and from the women's game. But in saying that, we're coming down to the business end of the regular season now, and it's getting really exciting, and it's time to see who's going to stand up and be counted for. And at this stage, I would still say there are 11 teams that are possible of making the 8. But we'll crack into our top stories, and we'll cover that off a little bit later on, ladies and gentlemen. Leading the way this week, again, perhaps as it has on many occasions, is the story surrounding the Brisbane Broncos and Anthony Seibold, Bradley.
Yeah, we're the Broncos podcast right now. I feel, but Anthony Seibold's officially, as of today, stood down as Broncos coach. He was offered $1 million to leave immediately, which he's taken. I didn't watch a lot of his interview today, but I know he's assumed responsibility for where the Broncos are right now, and that there was some issues in the dressing room with some of the players, and that he wants to spend time with family. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, pretty much. He'd lost the dressing room quite early on in his tenureship at the Brisbane Broncos, and he never really recovered from there, unfortunately. I think that, as much as he tried, he showed a little bit of compassion there in the sense that he felt that he really did try his best. And unfortunately, his best was poorly miserable on this occasion. So, yeah, unfortunately for Anthony, it's a tough time, I suppose. But I guess if you're walking away with a golden handshake and $1 million, you'd be pretty happy, Brad.
Yeah, I think it's probably best for both parties. I think he needed to move on. Broncos need to move on. So, I think getting a little bit of a payday on the way out. What he does in this future, we don't know. I suppose he's not even thinking about that right now. I think Kevin Walters and Paul Greens are the shoo-ins at the moment for the top job, but they haven't really had any discussions. I'm sure they're going to want to jump on that pretty soon, especially with some of their good players off contract. They'll want to just solidify what they're moving on with, and hopefully keep some of those players there, mainly Tony Staggs, who's off contract. They'll be wanting to make sure he stays on board.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, they've got to pick one of these guys. If they are the two favourites, they're the names that have been spoken about the most in recent times. So yeah, Paul Green or Kevin Walters look like you say, the front runners for the job. Who they have in the coaching capacity and the assistant ranks, etc., is yet to be revealed. Obviously, they each have probably their teams that they like to bring on board. But yeah, Brisbane's biggest owner, shareholder, I guess you could say, he's considering offloading his share of the Broncos. I'm wondering if that will change now that Anthony Seibold has left the fore, and we're going to get someone else in. So, look, we wish Anthony Seibold all the best. It's been a torrid time for him, and it's never nice to see his name being scrutinised as it has been on social media and throughout the Australian media. It's pretty disappointing, really. And you got to feel for the guy. Yes, he's on a hiding to nothing in terms of the rugby league this season. Broncos have only won one of their last 13 games since COVID restart. So, yeah, unfortunately for him, but look, we do wish him all the best.
Yeah, definitely. So next we're just confirming Proctor got his 4 weeks for the bite gate. Not really much more to go on there.
Yeah, I think he got 4 weeks. I think, fair enough result, I suppose. I mean, a genuine bite, they're giving 12 weeks or something. So it was sort of a half bite, wasn't it? 4 weeks. So, he has to take it and move on, really. But in staying in relation to the Titans, we have some other news as well, Brad.
Yeah, so Justin Holbrook's been signed on. His coaching has been extended to the end of 2024, which is a great move for the club. They've also got one of their props, Jamin Jolliffe, has re-signed until the end of 2022. So I think there's a lot of positive things coming out of the Gold Coast for their future.
Oh, absolutely. I can't. I'm excited at the prospect of watching them next year and the year after. They look like they're going to be a serious top eight team by the looks of things. And you'd have to say that you'd be pretty disappointed if they don't start making inroads into that. And it'll be interesting to see who wins the competition first, Bradley, whether it be the Gold Coast or the Vodafone Warriors. That would be really the last straw, I think, for the Warriors fans if we were to not win a championship ahead of the Gold Coast, but potentially with the team that they're bringing there, Fafita, Meninga's there, Tallis is there, they're holding on to Holbrook. They got these guys that are pretty quick at the back, so they're going to be a threatening team. Fogarty, they got some good players there, and they've got something to build on.
Definitely. And speaking of the coaches, 1 and 4 coaches have been axed this year. We've got Seabolt was our 5th, I think.
It's a genuine pattern. 1 in 4 coaches basically are not lasting a rugby league season in the NRL. That's the latest stat to come out in terms of the coaching ranks now. They're talking about perhaps having some minimum tenureship. So, like how Anthony Seabolt, he's basically stepped down with 5 rounds to go. They're potentially thinking of having, someone that has to stay there for the duration of the season, perhaps, because this kind of instability is not really wanted, in the game. So it'll be interesting to see what they do about that. But I think that it'll be very difficult to jurisdict something like that, Brad.
Yeah, I think it might be a bit too hard. Obviously, Seabolt had such a long contract, unusually long, which causes a bit of trouble when you see it not working. But in terms of a minimum, I'm not sure if what they can really do, because if something's really not working, you don't really want to be stuck with someone just because you might get a fine for kicking them out early. So I think golden handshakes are probably still going to be around for ones that just aren't meshing with the team.
Yeah, I think so. And look, I just hope that in the coming years we have a better caliber of coaches. I mean, we've had some pretty ordinary results this year from some of the lower ranked teams, particularly on the Queensland side of things. So let's look forward to 2021 in that regard and see what happens in the coaching ranks. I think for the rest of this year, we're not going to see any more sackings as such, but we'll just have to wait and see. In other news, the Warriors players are taking the finals a little bit more seriously now after beating the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs at the weekend. Should they be doing this, Bradley? Do you genuinely think, after the last 5 weeks of what you've seen, 3 wins, 2 losses by 6 points to top 4 sides, how do you see the Warriors over the next 5 weeks? We'll talk about them a little bit later on, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's still a bit too early to have the players talking about finals, but the draw's not as bad as I thought it was before they got into this run for the last month. I think just after the Sharks game, I looked at their draw and I had 1 win, which was against the Bulldogs, and they'd lose all the rest, and they've proven me wrong there.
That's right. Yes, you did.
So
they've proven you well and truly wrong, in fact, Bradley.
Yeah. So if they're still there and thereabouts, so they're just, all they can do is focus on winning every week. But if we go back to round 9, they narrowly lost to the Titans, which they shouldn't have lost. That should have been a game they won. If they'd won that, they'd be sitting at 9th, 1 win out of the 8. So it shows that just one little game can make the difference. So
well, it's not. Yeah, I guess when you say it like that, it's not just one little game, though, is it? I mean, if they'd won that and then they'd won the game against the Roosters, okay, they lost by 6. They didn't look like winning it. But let's say they had won that, and let's say they had beaten the Panthers. Okay, maybe they weren't going to ever beat the Panthers, but they only lost by 6. So It's these close games every season that haunt the Warriors, though. If you've noticed, they tend to lose about 4 or 5 games by about 10 or less points, let's say. And that basically, has them placed just on the fringes of the 8 or thereabouts, season in and season out, So that's what they've got to look at changing. But we can't change those 3 results. But yeah, we'll have a look at the draw a little bit later on, ladies and gentlemen. And speaking of, downward spirals, I guess you could say, the Tigers are just on a miserable run of form over the last 2 months, which will likely end their season missing out on a top 8 finish. Maguire is still somewhat hopeful, but Brad, the Tigers, they look like goners in 2020.
Yeah, they're gone. I know Maguire and Moses Imbai have actually come out and they talked about for next year, there's going to be quite a few talent removed from the side, and they're going to basically do their own little mini rebuild. And I think that's what they need to do. I think they've got talent there. They've just got some people not pulling their weight. So they need to get rid of that excess baggage and focus, because they just narrowly missed the top 8 last year. It looks like they're going to be around the same. So they haven't really improved on that spectrum. So they need to make some changes. And yeah, I think personnel changes will be the right way.
Yeah, I think there's talks of Russell Packer sort of not being wanted. Benji Marshall as well. Has he gone past his use by? Like, I mean, holding on to the golden boy of the West Tigers just for the sake of it, they might not want to do that going forward. We'll have to just wait and see. But we'll keep you updated on what happens with them. But unfortunately, as it stands right now, Tigers missing out on the top 8 spot, ladies and gentlemen. We've got the Panthers, however, on the other end of the spectrum, going for 10 straight victories. Thank you very much, Ivan Cleary. Thank you very much, Nathan Cleary. There's been some excellent rugby league being played by these Penrith Panthers this season, Bradley.
Yeah, it's going to take a really good team to defeat them. But if that Warriors game not that long ago showed, if you compete with them, you could sneak out a victory. So they might get pipped at the post by a really good team. If it happens, we'll have to wait and see.
Potentially the Panthers could go through the rest of the season undefeated. That's the other situation that I guess people, are not seeing. Because remember, if you're in that top 8 scenario, if you win in the first week, if you're in the top 4 and you win your first game, you're through to the preliminary round. Then you're just one game away from a grand final, correct? You'd only need to play 3 games in that final series. And, like Penrith's likely to win that first game against whoever it is, whether it be the Canberra Raiders or whether it be the Newcastle Knights or the Eels or the Roosters or the Storm. They'll probably win that game and then, try and get through to the grand final as quick as they can. But we'll have a look at their progress, ladies and gentlemen. They've been absolutely outstanding this year. Definitely the team that deserves a minor premiership and perhaps even the major one. So we've got a little bit more to talk about before we crack into the round 15. But the crusher tackle debacle, Bradley, this is spiraled out of control this week, I think. I mean, my goodness, are we starting to see the soccer Hollywoods come to rugby league? And if they are, should they be penalised for that? I've got a few interesting viewpoints on this, Brad.
Yeah, it's a hard one to penalise someone for a Hollywood. If we'll see, we'll talk about it a bit later. But Blake Green's ACL injury, if you watch that replay, it looked like nothing went wrong, and he was screaming like he'd lost his leg. So sometimes it might not look bad, but it actually hurts. So that part of it's hard, but there's definitely milking.
Definitely. And, on the weekend, you saw a couple of instances where they played for the penalty, and then as soon as the penalty was awarded, they spat the dummy and they gave it away that they were actually just kidding. Now that you got to bring a bit of sportsmanship to the sport, I would have thought, and I think that's terrible, to be honest with you. Like, you wouldn't see, and it's not going to happen from everyone. Michael Ennis was on the television saying, he'd do it. Well, there's no doubt about that, is that, Michael? Of course you would. You're a grub of a player in your time. I mean, my God, you're the most angriest, feistiest number 9 New South Wales probably ever seen. Once you penalised, wouldn't be too far behind. But hey, so I think that the crusher tackle scenario, it really has to be looked at, because if there's genuine concern of an injury, yes, there should be repercussions. But if they're just faking it, well, then, hey, look, that's also just taking a bit of a tarnish off the game for mine.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot of people talking about players voluntarily backing into the tackle, which we do see, but there's actually another part of that where I don't want to blame the Storm, because the Storm kind of invented it, but the wrestle, when they've got a ball
the grapple
runner,
type.
Yeah, the grapple, what they're doing when they get a ball player, they're actually twisting them to get them on their back, because if you're on your back, it takes you longer to play the ball, so it slows the game down. So there's a lot of times when a guy's running front on and he's getting turned backwards by the defenders. Not all the time. It's a bit of a mix. But if you're getting wrestled to your back and then going down, it can happen there as well. But yeah, they need to do something to address the milking. Otherwise, I think Nathan Brown is the biggest example. He went down on a crusher tackle like he'd broken his neck. And as soon as he got the penalty, he was up and he did the first hit up. it was like nothing had ever happened.
I guess the
So
referees are. I guess the referees are actually penalising the tackle, not the actual. I guess injury as such. They've got it in their mind what they have to penalise on, and they're sort of okay. We've seen something that we don't like. We'll penalise it. But it's that knee-jerk reaction from the players. That sort of influences the referee's decision-making process. So that's what I'm concerned about. So let's see what happens in the coming weeks, because that could impact on one of the teams heavily. I mean, just imagine that if a crusher tackle costs you 2 points, 30 meters out right in front, grand final day, 79 minutes gone, you're 14 all. Man, would you be happy? I don't think so.
yeah,
I think you'd be pretty disappointed if you got a call that was a bad one. And even if you got a call where, let's say, he faked it, well, that would be, I think that, the fans, because the fans, a lot of the fans have already spoken about this. They don't like it. So let's see how they address that situation. I think right now we'll crack into round 15, Bradley.
Yeah, so round 15 started off with the Eels defeating the Storm 14-0. So this was our only difference in our picks, and I was lucky on this one. I was hoping the Eels would win, but I didn't think the Storm wouldn't score a point. It's actually the first time in 6 years they've been held scoreless.
Well, that's some record, to be honest. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, to give you an understanding, to go scoreless, to keep a team scoreless in rugby league, in the modern era with the way that the game is played, that is some feat. So yeah, I mean, to keep Melbourne scoreless, shock result for mine, to be honest. At the weekend, I definitely thought the Storm would, take this one out. And even without their heavy artillery available at the Melbourne Storm, and the likes of Smith and obviously Munster, I thought that they were going to still win. However, the Eels showed that they really are a premiership contender. They've been a bit quiet, I guess, through this middle part of the last half of the season, if that makes sense. They came out with the hiss and a roar, of course, with something like 5 to 6 wins at the start, remember, after the COVID break. So, they're looking to re-spark their attack, and they've worked on their defence, as you can see from their victory against the Melbourne Storm. So they're going to be a threat. They're going to be thereabouts. They're going to make a push for it. They're going to be one of the teams that say, hey, look, we can win this. So they've got some supreme athletes over there as well. Hey, how about that Junior Paulo, Bradley?
Yeah, he's quite a skillful player for a man his size. It's scary, some of these big boys, what they can do now. You think it wasn't that long ago where it was just Jason Tomalolo was the only big boy that had a bit of skill to him, but now it seems like every team's got one or two big boppers that can do more than just be a tank in the middle. So
yeah, these like free ranging front rowers that are just evolving the game even further.
Yeah. And Brandon Smith, unfortunately, broke his jaw and is going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks. I actually saw quite a funny picture that he put out on social media after the game where it showed the tackle where he broke his jaw, and he advised everyone he was going to be out 4 to 6 weeks for biting the guy's arm. So he had a bit of humor. He had a bit of humor in an unfortunate scenario for him, but I'm sure they'll be welcoming him back once they head into playoffs.
Yes, and obviously his partner in crime in the hooking position there at the Melbourne Storm, Cameron Smith, he's tipped to either play a last season in Queensland or retire. They're not picking that he will be at the Melbourne Storm next year. Personally, I'd like to see him at the Titans. I think that, to finish off his playing career, a year at the Titans would be fantastic. Really strengthen their team. But Bradley, what do you think he'll do?
Yeah, I actually read an interview with Justin Holbrook today where he said that Cameron Smith isn't in his game plan. So he's not fussed on having him. He's not a player you'd say no to, though. If he's interested in playing for you, he's going to be in your team. But I don't know if that means that Broncos are going to be favourites here. I know he had always envisioned going back to Brisbane in some capacity at some point.
Then do you want to go back to a Brisbane that's been absolutely pummeled in 2020, and basically next year, I guess, would be a rebuilding kind of year? I guess, he might like to be part of it, and he might win a championship with them in his last year. I mean, that would be hell of a story. So maybe he's thinking along those lines, Bradley.
Yeah, we just don't know. I think they said that his decision's going to be on Sunday on what he's actually going to do. So I guess we just have to wait and see. But it doesn't sound like he's interested in retiring anytime soon. So, I think we'll see him play on.
the best of luck to him, and we'll keep you updated as to what he intends to do, ladies and gentlemen. On Friday night, we also had the Panthers versus the Sharks, and what turned out to be a hiding with a Sean Johnson-less Sharks outfit, 38 points to 12 at Panthers Stadium. Somewhat of a hiding. The Panthers go 10-0. At the moment, they've got a great environment. They're super confident, and they're just playing some amazing football.
Yeah, I think it's definitely theirs to lose right now. I think you'd be safe putting money on them to go all the way. The Sharks really missed Johnson, who was away because he just had his baby girl. So that's why he missed the game. So congratulations on the baby. Wish he told me a bit sooner because he was in my fantasy team, so he cost me some points. But yeah, I think if he was there, I think it would have been a bit more competitive. But I still think the Panthers would have got away with the win.
Yeah, I think so. I think that Sean, as good as he has been in recent weeks, and he's topping the charts in terms of try assists. I think that you're right. This particular Panthers outfit would have, at the moment, it's unimaginable for any team to beat them, I suppose. And we'll just have to wait and see when we get closer to the final series to see if who can sort of get under their skin and actually have a competitive game with them. Besides that Warriors game with them a couple of weeks ago, they've looked pretty strong in recent weeks. But look, a solid performance on their behalf. Sharks, a bit of work to do. Their problem is solely around their defense. Obviously, that's has been their Achilles heel, I guess you could say, for the duration of this season. So they've got a few things to work on defensively, and let's hope that they can get it right and Sean Johnson's back. But obviously, we don't want them to surpass the Warriors, which they are ahead at the moment. So let's have a look at their run home. They've got the Cowboys, Knights, the Warriors, the Roosters, and they finish with the Raiders. Bradley, how do you see that run home? What games do you see the Sharks being able to win out of those 5?
If we just go by how they've been, where they beat everyone below them, they lose to everyone above them, you would say they should be beating the Cowboys and the Warriors, but they should lose the other 3. I think the Warriors can get the job done, so potentially they could even lose 4, but then the Knights are in a bit of a disarray. So I'd say maybe out of their last run, they might get 2.
Okay, so let's see. So they might get 2 wins, and 3 would be a pretty a good result for them. I think 3 would bank them a finals berth come late next month. So yeah, I think that we'll have to keep an eye on the Sharks. We'll come to the ladder a little bit later on and just see how that all plays out. We'll move to Friday night's fixtures now, ladies and gentlemen. On Friday night, we had the Brisbane Broncos, who the much talked about Broncos, unfortunately going down. Another loss for them. Their 12th loss in the last 13 weeks, and they were beaten 28 points to 24 from a up-and-coming Dragons outfit, Brad.
Yeah, I thought this game was going to be probably the only game left this year that the Broncos might have been able to squeak a victory in, but the Dragons just looked a lot better. They've gone 4 from 5 wins with Ben Hunt at 9. So hopefully they decide to keep him there, which is where he's probably been in his best position in any team he plays for. So Zach Lomax has been consistent. Katoni Staggs was really the only highlight for the Broncos. He scored a magnificent try. Probably try of the round, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was a fantastic try, and the celebrations thereafter. They were playing some good football in that game, but unfortunately, it slipped away from them, and they eventual losers by 4 points. Look, it's just they just need some wins. I think to sort of be happy about themselves, really, more than anything, the Brisbane Broncos. And I think that the players' confidence levels are at an all-time low. So, look, wishing them all the best. But, Cowboys run home. This is an interesting one for us Warriors supporters because the Cowboys are a team that is above us at the moment.
Dragons.
The Dragons are a team above us in the for and against situation at the moment. And we touch and go as to whether they pip us at the post, Brad. And, they've got the Titans, Cowboys, Raiders, Knights, and the Storm. So which games out of those 5 do you think the Dragons could potentially win?
Titans, Cowboys.
Okay, so they could potentially come away with 2 victories there. Firm losers against the Raiders, Knights, and the Storm. They're a kind of team that could upset one of those. They've had some sort of upsetting kind of victories this year, I believe. But I think their first victory at the start of the year was an upset. So we've got the Titans and Cowboys. So, yeah, potentially we only see them having as well 4 to 6 points on their run home, maximum of 6, and perhaps a minimum of 4. I have banked on the Titans beating them this weekend, though. I think the Titans are playing some really good rugby league, and I reckon that they can. Hopefully, they can knock off the Dragons, because I need the point in the picking contest.
And it would help the Warriors out too. So
absolutely.
And then, so our first game on Saturday was actually the Titans losing to the Raiders, 36-16. I think the highlight for everybody in this game was Papali running 60 meters to catch Fogarty. I think it's something that we're going to see in highlight reels for a while, and probably something the fast little halfback isn't going to let get. He won't forget it in a long time. I know he's been getting a lot of stick from the boys in the club. So yeah, great to see Papali playing really well for the Raiders. I know Ricky Stewart's been talking about extending his contract to make sure he stays with the Raiders until he retires. So what were your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I thought it was a solid performance from the Raiders, and it was a hell of a catch, I guess you could say, from Papali. 60-meter run. We've got Ricky Stewart coming out and saying, he's perhaps one of the best Raiders there ever has been. So that's huge accolade from Ricky. Ricky's a very well-respected coach in the NRL, and he was obviously a hell of a player back in his playing days at the Canberra Raiders. So a really, really big rap there for Papali, and he could be another. A life member such as Taumalolo up there. They might offer him a 6, 7, 8, 9-year contract. Who knows? And he could look at seeing out his playing days in Canberra. Wouldn't be a bad move. They're a pretty good club, and a club that certainly, I would say, has premiership aspirations in the not too distant future as well. Last year, grand finalists, of course, ladies and gentlemen. So they are, they're always there or thereabouts in recent times. And and in terms of this season, they've cemented, I guess you could say, a top 5 spot. But do you think they can break through to the top 4, Brad? Because I really think that it could be crucial for them to be in the 4 come finals time.
Yeah, I think a lot of teams don't want 4th. That they won't say it, but because the way the playoffs are run, first place 4th in that first round. So I think a lot of teams don't want to play the Panthers first up. Doesn't mean they're going to try to lose a game to stay 5th or try to push up to 3rd, but 4th place seems to be a really daunting spot at the moment. You do get another life, so to speak. So if you lose to the Panthers, you still get another shot. But as you said earlier, you get an extra game in the playoffs, and it makes your road a little bit tougher. So I don't know if they'll get up to 4th, but
yeah, I think the top 4 is pretty well cemented anyway, with the Panthers, Storm, Eels, and the Panthers, Storm, Eels, and who is making up the top 4 there? The Roosters, of course. We're just going to talk about them. So on Saturday we have the West Tigers versus the Roosters, and that was another somewhat of a one-sided affair at 38 points to 16, and this was the Tigers' beginning of the end, so to speak, Brad.
Yeah, I know we mentioned it earlier that Maguire still believes they can make the 8, but I think he's dreaming. I don't see it. They can't defend, which you need to do right now. That's one of the biggest changes for the Warriors in game we'll talk about in a bit. But one of their biggest changes in the last month has been their ability to defend. And if you can't defend, you're not going to beat these teams coming up. So yeah, they might stick around at 9th, but they could even go down further depending on how some of those other teams go.
Yeah, and they're leaking a lot of points, I guess you could say. 38 points against the Roosters. They've been on the end of a few high-scoring affairs this season, but they can still make the 8 potentially. So let's see what happens with them. On the flip side, for the Roosters, the Warrior, Hargraves, and Takiaho, too strong up front. I think they just beat them up the middle and allowed their backs to take care of business, really. And they were running rampant at one stage. So quite a comprehensive victory from the Roosters against the Western Suburbs. Against the West Tigers there. So. Yeah, Tigers run home for their opportunity to make the playoffs. They've got the Panthers, Sea Eagles, Rabbitohs, Storm, and Eels. Now, I'll start with this one, Bradley. I think that they could potentially beat Sea Eagles, and that's pretty much it. I think that they would struggle to beat any of the other teams. That's a very tough run home. We've got Rabbitohs, Storm, Eels, and the Panthers. So what do we got there? We've got 2 top 4 sides and 2 top 8 sides. So that's going to be very, very tough. And good news for our Warriors supporters, however. it gives us a little bit of bit of perspective in trying to knock them off the ladder and running for that 8th spot.
Yeah, definitely. And the Roosters are going to start being hard to beat. They got some big names coming back. Sonny Bill's still lurking in the dark corners of the stadium, and it wouldn't surprise me if you see a Panthers Roosters final with the way they're going. But also Mitchell Orbison's announced that he's retiring at the end of the season, so that's a little bit more incentive for the Roosters to try to make that three-peat to send them out on a high.
Yes, there would be a fantastic way to end what has been an illustrious career at the Sydney Roosters for Mitch Orbison. On moving on to Saturday's other fixtures, Brad, we had the Rabbitohs up against the Sea Eagles, and what was a trouncing, another hiding, 56 points to 16. Just after last week, I was saying any team could beat any other team. This week, there's been a few hidings, so making me look stupid, really, Bradley.
Yeah, it was a near perfect first half for the Rabbitohs. They ended the half 38-0, and it just looked horrible. You could see Seagulls are struggling without Tom Trbojevic, and I think as a Seagulls fan, you'd be a bit concerned that your team's form changes with just one player gone. We've been talking about Melbourne, how they've lost some key players, and they still play, bar this week, pretty well. You've got Newcastle, who have been battling, losing everybody. So the fact that you lose Tom Trbojevic is a fantastic player, but you can't just lose one player and your whole team fall apart.
There's something else. Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's something else definitely. I don't know. There's some sort of mental glitch at the Sea Eagles. No one. I don't think even the players can put their finger on it. Whilst they have got some injuries, they've still got some talent out there on the park, and they're just unable to click without Tom. He just seems to be the glue that holds them together, I guess you could say. And conceding 40 points for the 3rd time this season, that's some pretty heavy defeats there. But in saying that, their for and against is not too bad, which we'll have a look at compared to some of the teams that are going for that 8th spot. And that's still surprising considering they've conceded that many points on that many occasions. But
yeah, and I think going off the Seagulls, go back to the Rabbitohs for a bit. I think Latrell Mitchell had a great game. He had 23 line break assists, 14 try assists this year, and he's really finding his way as a fullback. I know I had doubts when he announced that he wanted to be a fullback. I thought he was quite a good center, but he's really getting into it, and I think there's probably no better coach to help him develop as a fullback than Wayne Bennett. Wayne Bennett is quite a people's coach, or a player's coach as such. And he seems to be getting a lot of good out of him. And I think there's a little bit of pressure taken off him for that, because there was a lot of pressure on him at the start of the season. And people are kind of leaving him alone a bit now. And I think we're seeing him play a lot better because of it.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. To have Bennett there as a mentor for him will do him wonders, and I think that he'll learn a lot from Wayne. Another gentleman who had the fantastic game at the weekend, Damien Cook, just running rampant up the middle. He monstered them. He just took them apart. Cook, Walker, and Reynolds had, they're a deadly combination. They had a fantastic game out on the weekend, and they're starting to really look like premiership contenders again. We spoke about them earlier in the season. They sort of had a pretty lean patch in the middle where they still came away with some victories, but weren't looking like premiership contenders. That game on the weekend sort of suggests that they're sort of going for it more so than ever, and they look like they're going to be there or thereabouts as well, Brad, come finals time.
Yeah, I think in the next couple of weeks we've got their run home. They've got the Eels, the Storm, the Tigers, the Bulldogs, and then the Roosters. So I think the next 2 weeks you're really going to see if they are a premiership threat or not, and judging how they go against the Eels and the Storm.
Yes, no, there'll be a good contest this weekend coming up. The Rabbitohs, the Eels, I believe that's on Thursday. So that will be a cracker of a game to see, ladies and gentlemen. I think that, you definitely want to tune in for that one. Yes, like you say, Storm, Tigers, Bulldogs, Roosters. You'd expect them to probably take the Tigers and the Bulldogs out. And again, the Storm and the Roosters, well, that will be a challenge. Those three teams, they will think if they can beat one or two of those three even and get themselves into the top 6, they would think that they can win it, I would suggest. So on the flip side for the Sea Eagles, they've got the Storm, the Tigers, the Bulldogs, Titans, and the Warriors. Now, obviously, we want them to lose that last one against us, but I would also hope that the Bulldogs can get up and beat them, which is probably unlikely. But the Titans could upset them as well. So yeah,
Yeah, I think the Bulldogs is really the only. It's not you can't. It's unfair to say the safe option, but I think it's really the only one you could really pencil in and say this is a win for the Seagulls. It all
oh,
depends.
I don't know.
It just
I
depends
think I'd
what
have to. I
team
mean,
you're good
after
at.
yeah, sorry. I'm just going to disagree on that a little bit there because I think that if you saw the Bulldogs on the game against the Warriors, now that they're sort of trying to dust off the Dean Pate era, they're coming back a little bit stronger, and they might be not be the easy beats for the last 5 rounds that everyone thinks they will be. There might be a few wins in these guys, because they're playing for contracts in the next year and so forth. And like Foreigners, obviously he's off contract, so he wants to be somewhere. And so I don't know about that, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, definitely. And then that takes us. Speaking of the Bulldogs, that takes us to the first game on Sunday, which was the Warriors defeating the Bulldogs 20-14. What were your thoughts on this?
Yeah, the Dogs look like the best they have in probably 3 to 4 seasons. To be fair, that was some scary football early on. It looked like the Warriors were going to get quickly pushed out of it, and it was quite scary, I guess, for us Warriors supporters watching that. And you know what, the feeling I'm talking about when you have a Bulldogs team that's in last place, and you think, oh, they've quickly slapped 10 points across your face. You think, okay, here we go. It could be a day to forget. But Nicarima probably having his best game in the Warriors jersey, putting on 3 try assists and a come from behind victory. I think, yeah, him and Murchie were strong. And Brad, do you think, after this, Peyton's saying it's suicidal to think finals football. The players are saying, hey, look, we can make it. We'll have a look at their run home. They've got the Knights, Eels, Sharks, Raiders, and Sea Eagles. So I would say they need to win 4, if not 5 games to make it, because as it stands right now, they're, I think, 6 points adrift from the 8. And so really we need any team that's in 8th position to lose. And for the Warriors, their for and against is not good. So being on the same amount of competition points come the last round of the season is not going to be in their favor, you would say. They're not going to gain back that much. So they'd have to be winning all their games going forward. And I mean, I just see the Eels, obviously, and the Raiders being the tougher games, but I do see them being able to compete against the likes of the Knights, the Eels, and the Knights, the Sharks, and the Sea Eagles. I really do.
Yeah. I think the only option they have is to win. They just have to turn up, win the games, and move on. That's we don't want to get into calculations and stuff, because once we get into that, that's the rabbit hole where the Warriors always trip up when they're like, we only need to win 1 out of 10 or whatever. But yeah, I think the Eels and the Raiders are the Judderbar games for them that could trip them up. But Knights, Sharks, Eagles are ones I see them being competitive and at least a lot better than the last time they played the Sharks.
Oh, absolutely. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens against the Knights, because that's probably an even enough contest. I think you could say for the weekend. I think obviously the Knights are still huge favourites, odds-on favourites, probably in the booking and with the bookies. But yeah, I think that it will be a very tight game, and I think the Warriors can come away with it. But we'll have a look at our picks in a second. We'll cover off the last game of the round, and that was the Knights versus the Cowboys. Surprising, baffling kind of game, really. 12 points to 0. Yeah, it was a physical game, but just had no rhythm.
Yeah, I don't like saying it. It felt like a boring game to me. It wasn't, but it just felt like there was a lot of nothing happening. But that's due to how physical it was, and both teams really not wanting to take a back step and let the other team in. And the Knights, unfortunately, losing Blake Green early on did them no favors. I know a lot of people have said he might not come back, but they've actually announced today that he signed a 1-year deal with the Bulldogs for next year. And
okay, interesting.
It's not that long ago announced, and the Bulldogs are sticking with it because they had signed the deal before the injury, but they said no, they're sticking with it, and he's vowed to come back stronger and help them out. So hopefully he comes back. It's at his age, at 33, with an ACL. It's hard to say, but I think he's still going to definitely be involved in the NRL, even if he does get through that year with the Bulldogs. I see him as even an assistant coach going down. He's been with every club you can imagine. So what team he ends up with, I'm not sure. But it'll be, yeah, I wish him nothing but the best. I hope he bounces back.
Yeah, he had a pretty rough time of it over here. Obviously, earlier on in the season, getting left out of next year's squad the way that happened, and the controversy surrounding that. So, look, we definitely do wish Blake Green all the best. And if he's going to the Bulldogs, well, that may put writing on the wall for someone like Kieran Foran, because they're both playing in the number 6 jersey currently, and I don't think they have any aspirations of moving Foran to halfback. So, Foran may be looking for a new club, and maybe they'll do a bit of a switcheroo, and Foran will go to the Newcastle Knights. Who knows, ladies and gentlemen? It's a funny world in the rugby league stakes, and you could be a member of one team one week and a member of another the next. So, but look, we'll have a look at the Knights run home. They've got the Warriors, of course, the Sharks, Roosters, Dragons, and Titans. And with their injury concerns now, like if we have a look at Jaden Braley, Andrew McCulloch, Connor Watson, and now Blake Green. All out of the side with injuries. They've had a horrid time this season with season-ending injuries as well, and they're going to be, it's going to be tough for them to win all of those games. There's no Bulldogs there, obviously having just recently played them, so it's going to be tough for them to maintain their position, and they could slip out.
Yeah, they could. They actually could run the risk of getting squeaked out of the top 8, or just making it if they don't get some wins on board. Obviously, they'll be targeting the game this week against the Warriors, the game against the Dragons, and the game against the Titans as ones that they should walk away with points. It's just if they've got enough cattle to do it, will be the biggest question.
Absolutely, and we'll have a look at that. In terms of the Cowboys, yeah, they're just waiting for next season. Look, Jason Taumalolo, an unfortunate calf injury for the big fella. So yeah, we wish him a speedy recovery and hope he gets back on the playing field sooner rather than later. But right now, we'll have a look at the table and see where the teams stand after round 15. And look, we've got 5 rounds to go, ladies and gentlemen. It's becoming an exciting time in the NRL season. And at the top of the table, we have the Panthers, Storm, Eels, and Roosters making up the top 4, followed by the Raiders, Knights, Rabbitohs, and Sharks. Brad, out of the top 8, who do you see as top 4 and staying in the top 4 until round 20 ends?
I think it's going to be how we see it there: Panthers, Storm, Eels, and Roosters. There might be a little bit of switcheroos between those 2nd, 3rd, and 4th teams. You could potentially see the Roosters go up a little bit, or the Eels go up. I think Panthers have got it well and truly in the bag as minor premiers, unless the wheels completely fall off. So yeah, I think it's really, I don't see the Raiders sneaking up. They could, but I think the Roosters, Eels, and Storm are playing reasonable football, bar the hiccup for the Storm. They've got Cameron Smith and that back this week, so they should be back onto the right track. So yeah, I think the 4 you see is the 4 that will be. It just might be a little bit different order.
Excellent. Well, I mean, it's obviously the bottom half of the top 8 is the what we're concerned about, and it's the Raiders, Knights, Rabbitohs, and the Sharks. Obviously, we've got the West Tigers. We're thinking that their season is over. We've had a look at what the Dragons' run home is. It looks very difficult. The Sea Eagles, probably one of the toughest out of those, and then obviously the Knights, the Rabbitohs, and the Sharks. Now, I think realistically, for Warriors team to get into the top 8, you'd have to have 2 of those teams there drop out of the top 8 almost. And I know it sounds a pretty weird thing to say, but I just think that they have to get in there comfortably by a point. You see, that they can't have the same points as other competition teams, because at a negative 131, they're simply not going to be able to be equal 8. They'd have to hit that 7th spot, and therefore they need 2 of those teams to move. Obviously, everyone below the Warriors is now officially out of the race. So the Titans, Cowboys, Broncos, the Bulldogs. And even out of these 4, though, I'll ask you this, Brad. Out of the West Tigers, Dragons, Sea Eagles, and the Warriors, okay, we are in 12th spot. But I want to ask you, out of those 4 teams, who do you think can make the top 8 out of those 4?
Out of those 4, at the moment with form, I would say the Warriors and Dragons are the only ones that have a whiff. Yeah, I think the Warriors have been playing good football the last month. Even with those 2 losses, they've been close. And I think the thing that is in their favor is who they're playing. Admittedly, they got some hard games, but they're playing the Raiders, the Knights, and the Sharks. in these upcoming weeks. So if you can get wins against them, you're getting some points and the guys above you are not getting the points. So you can make that gap a little bit less. It's not like the Warriors are playing all the bottom teams so the guys above them can keep winning. So I think it's just they've got to go in and win every game and hopefully reel it back.
Yeah, that elusive 1 point that the Knights grabbed over the Panthers back in round 1 pre-COVID, that could prove the difference this season for the Warriors, couldn't it? Because they could just sneak in there and that would be tragedy. But anyway, let's move on from that and we'll have a look at our round 15 picks. But before that, do we have any viewer questions today, Paul?
Yep, we've got a couple of questions here from over on Brad's Rambles the page. We've got TK asking, is there any hope we can sign Harrington? Sorry.
Yeah.
I think there might be. There's been talks that the Panthers are looking at trying to make some cap room, and Hetherington's on $400 a year with them, which is unbelievable for a guy that can't make the game days to be getting that much. So they could potentially see quite a decent chunk of change freed up if they let him go. And I know the Warriors would probably pick him up in a heartbeat. I'd love him to come here. It's just a wait and see on what the Panthers want to do with his contract. But yeah, I'm an optimist. I'd say, yeah, I want him.
I think it'd be a great fit, definitely. He gets along with the current setup. He's quite physical. We need someone like him, actually. I think that, one of the things that the Warriors have been lacking is a Kevin Campion type player, someone with a bit of gusto, at times I feel that we're quite a bit, a good boy team, if that makes sense. So yeah, he's exactly what we need, and I hope we can get him.
It'd be great.
Jordan asks, who are your Dally M potentials winners so far?
And his Jordan's also gone on to elaborate. Mine are Cleary, Manu, and Ponga. I don't know where he's getting Manu and Ponga from. I think Cleary is out there on his own, and if it's not Cleary, well, there's some other contenders I would suggest that are more closer to him than Manu and Ponga. Fred?
Yeah, I think it's Cleary's to lose, a bit like the Panthers in the Premiership, really. I think he's a bit too far ahead, and his closest competitors have been gone for the last couple of weeks, so he's getting a bit of a leapfrog on them. With Harry Grant was probably his closest, and he's been gone 3-4 weeks now.
And Carey from the Roosters.
Carey as well, he's out. So I think
and Cameron Smith, of course.
And Cameron Smith, yeah. So I think Cleary's probably got it in the bag.
Yeah, so. And we were talking about crusher tackles. Do we need to go back to 2 refs then to sort it out?
God no.
About a long time.
God no. No. We've got enough cameras. We've got enough technology. We've got enough gentlemen in the bunker. One upstairs. The crowd are there. We don't need any more referees on the pitch.
Yeah, I think the refs just need to probably a bit harsh, but grow a bit of a backbone and not be so reactive to a player's reaction. Just take a moment. Take a moment to actually assess: was it an actual crusher or was it a milk, and then go on. I think it's still early days for them. I think, as we were talking earlier, if you get to a moment where it's like a big game moment and someone does it and it all blows up, they'll definitely make a rule to fix it.
Definitely.
Cool. Finally, Jordan again, are the younger grades or feeder clubs for all NRL teams able to play this year? Do you know? Do you know what's going on with that?
None of them are able to play.
None of them are able to play, which is probably why there's been so many injuries when these new guys get brought in, because they haven't played football for months. I think Paul Turner, we didn't mention him in the Warriors game. He had a good outing, but he hasn't played football since the 90s. So some of those players, yeah, they're just sitting there. They're doing the training every week, obviously, but it's not the same as being out on the field. So, yeah, it's unfortunate that they're not playing, but them's the breaks with COVID right now.
Yeah, it'd be good to have that talent back next season. I think, we want to see that talent coming through, and we also want to see a little bit more depth in the squad. So it'll be interesting next season when they're able to play. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, I'll hand you back for round 16, is it?
Yeah.
Yes, round 16. and obviously we have to make some picks here, Brad. So we'll just jump into that. Okay, so on round 16, we've got on Thursday night, we've got the Eels versus the Rabbitohs. Brad, who are you going with this one?
I'm going with the Eels.
That's only because they won last week against the Storm. Now you think that they're all hot.
They're my team now. They're my team. I'm going with them.
Oh, so you're saying you're for the record, you're saying the Eels will win the premiership?
No.
Oh, okay. So they're one of your teams then.
They're my team this week.
They're your team this week. Okay, cool. Hey, look, I think I'd have to tend to agree. I think the Eels are hot favourites for that one. But hey, look, the way the Rabbitohs have been playing, it'll be a hell of a game. I think it'll be exciting to watch. So I'm going to tune in. It's $1.44 playing 280, which is surprising. But yeah, let's see what happens with Latrell playing the way that he is. Anything can happen. On Friday night, we've got the Dragons up against the Titans. Dragons paying $1.31 to the Titans $3.50, and I'm backing them home from the Gold Coast.
You're going with Titans?
I'm going to back the Titans in. Yes, I think that
right.
they've got another win left in them this season, and this Dragons outfit, they've been playing better, but we also need them to lose so we can overtake them. And better this week than next. But I'm going purely on the fact that, look, they had a bit of a blip against the Raiders at the weekend, but generally they've been playing some good football. And just like to see them win another game, really. But I know it's probably a Hail Mary call, but I'll back them in. Maybe you should make a Hail Mary call or two because you're pretty conservative there with your calls. Going to go for another 8 from 8.
Yeah, I'm going for 100%. So I'm going with the Dragons.
Fantastic. Okay.
And then the next Friday game is the Roosters paying $1.40 against the Broncos paying $11. So I think you're going with the Broncos, aren't you?
Absolutely not. I think you'd have to pay me to go for the Broncos at the moment, unfortunately. So they're just unfortunately this is $1.04. The odds are heavily stacked against the Broncos for this one. It's at the SCG. There's really no hope in their life that they're going to win this one.
No.
You could have thought if it was at Suncorp, a few crowd members, but this has just got death trap written all over it. I'll be surprised if they don't get 20 to 30 points slapped on them, if not more. So yeah, bank me in for the Roosters.
Okay.
On Saturday we've got the Warriors versus the Knights. Warriors are paying $2.95 and the Knights going in at favourites at $1.40. They are playing at Tamworth, which was the temporary home of the Vodafone Warriors during the whole COVID situation. So who are you picking, Brad?
I'm going with the Warriors on this one. I think the Warriors are showing some good form, and I think losing another member of the spine might be a bit too much for the Knights.
For the Knights, yeah. Yeah, look, I think that injury has sort of prompted me to make a decision that the Warriors have got a chance of, going forward. Because if they can beat the Knights, it gives them a little bit of a run on into the finals, final 4 weeks of the competition. A little bit of momentum can be built. So, it'll be good to come away with a solid victory against them. So I'll bank them in. On Saturday, we've got the Sharks versus the Cowboys. I've got the Sharks running away with this one. The Cowboys obviously just looking forward to 2021 now.
Yeah, same here.
Cool. We've got Saturday night, the Panthers versus the Tigers. The Tigers are hiding to nothing. I don't see this Tigers outfit being able to beat this particular Panthers side. There's just no hope, unfortunately. Sunday's fixtures, we've got the Storm versus Sea Eagles. That'll be interesting enough, but the Sea Eagles still without Tommy Trbojevic would expect to lose quite handsomely, I would have thought, Brad.
Yeah, I think so. I think it might be a bad night for Manly.
And we end up with another potentially dead rubber of a game, which are the Raiders and the Bulldogs on Sunday. And I'll back in the Raiders for this one. And you are backing in the Bulldogs, aren't you, Brad?
No, I'll go with the Raiders. I still think the Bulldogs have a win in them this year. But yeah, it won't be against the Raiders.
Excellent. So we're again 1 game adrift this week, ladies and gentlemen, and Brad has been on the successful end of winning most rounds this season. And as it stands right now, he is on the top at 74 out of 96 games successfully chosen compared to my 69 from 96. So with the final series looming, we may have to go to a 2-point draw system come finals time for me to try and catch up. So we will keep you updated. But in news from around the world in the Super League, James Gavitt from the Huddersfield Giants and Jackson Hastings from Wigan And Dean Riley from the Warrington have been banned for 2 weeks for COVID breaches.
Yeah. So they've also had they've been fined, but the Super League have not announced how much those fines are. So a bit similar to what we saw a few weeks ago here. Unfortunate that they're doing it, especially with how bad COVID is over there. And as Simon's put in a comment here, Wigan and Catalan Dragons matches have actually been postponed due to Catalan players testing positive for COVID. And Wigan's going to play the Tigers instead. So it shows how bad it is over there. So the fact that they're doing these breaches, it's not good.
No, absolutely.
And then, yeah, not good at all.
No, obviously, like that part of the world has suffered quite immensely. And, the situation, like you say, it's much more worse than what we have over here. So, yeah, they definitely shouldn't be. I mean, there shouldn't be any breaches anyway. Shouldn't be any breaches back home here. You got players hugging members of the crowd after the game, going to bike gangs and pizza parlors and barbershops and you name it. So it's just it's unthinkable, really. But anyway, that's what's been going on. But another bizarre news from the United Kingdom. One of their major sponsors, John Papa's Pizza, they were mocked. And,
so Super League's got a new sponsorship deal with Papa John's, which is a pizza branch, and they've been made fun of for it due to the fact that they get no money from the sponsorship deal. So Papa John's gets billboarding advertising at all the games, and they are providing a couple of pizzas for the teams after the game. So it's good to see Super Leagues become kind of like a first 15 competition where the team gets together and has a meal together afterwards. So yeah, not a good look when the Super League's desperate for sponsorship money to keep them afloat in such a turbulent time.
No, just like seems really bizarre.
The New Zealand Sports Radio would be accepting of such form of sponsorship if, Papa John's or any other pizza joint such as Sal's, who do the NZNBL here in New Zealand, or Hell's Pizza. Hey boys, we'd love a feed. So do think of us.
Absolutely. And that brings us to the conclusion of our show. We don't have any news to update you with in the women's game this week, ladies and gentlemen. We'll keep you updated in regards to that. But hey, we're 13 weeks into season 1 now, and we're 5 rounds left in the competition. It's coming to the exciting end of the regular season, and I think every week in from here will throw some interesting facts and stats at us. Brad, it's been a pleasure as always. People can also catch us via our podcast, so tune in to New Zealand Sport Radio and the Stand Up with Brad and Sanj. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Just before we go, though, a big thank you to Jordan, who has given us $10 in the super chat there over on YouTube. Look, folks, we are an independent media station. We do this all because we love doing it, and your support is much appreciated, be it financial, as Jordan's done there. You can also support us through our Patreon page as well. Just search for NZ Sport, patreon.com/NZ Sport Radio. Or just sharing as well, guys. Just sharing it out and increasing our viewership is much appreciated. So thank you, everybody, for your support and for watching New Zealand Sports Radio.
Yeah, and thanks, Jordan, for the sponsorship there. Thank you very much.
We appreciate it, guys.